The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, sending Dom Perignon across Italian leather shoes worth more than most people's cars. But I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes locked on Harold Blackwood as he stood at the head of his mahogany dining table, face flushed with expensive wine and cheaper prejudice. "My daughter deserves better than trash," he announced to the room full of his country club friends, business associates, and horrified family members. Street trash dressed in a borrowed suit, pretending to belong in our world. The silence that followed was deafening. 23 pairs of eyes swiveled between Harold and me, waiting to see if the nobody dating the princess would dare respond to the king. I carefully folded my napkin, the cloth probably cost more than my first apartment's monthly rent, and placed it beside my untouched plate of $40 salmon. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Blackwood," I said, standing slowly, "and thank you for finally being honest about how you feel." Sophia grabbed my hand. "Adrian, don't." I squeezed her fingers gently, then let go. "It's fine, love, your father's right. I should know my place." The smirk on Harold's face was worth capturing, that self-satisfied expression of a man who thought he'd won, who believed he'd finally driven away the street rat who dared to touch his precious daughter. If only he knew. I walked out of that dining room with my head high, past the Monet in the hallway, past the servants who avoided eye contact, past the Bentley in the driveway that Harold had made sure to mention cost more than I'd make in 5 years. Sophia caught up to me at my car, my sensible Honda that Harold had sneered at when I'd pulled up. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I had no idea he'd." "Shoo." I pulled her close, inhaling the scent of her perfume mixed with the salt of her tears. "This isn't your fault. I'll talk to him, make him apologize." "No." I tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. "No more apologizing for him. No more making excuses. He said what he's been thinking for the past year. At least now we know where we stand. Adrian, please, don't let him ruin us." I kissed her forehead. "He can't ruin what's real. Soph, I'll call you tomorrow, okay?" She nodded reluctantly, and I drove away from the Blackwood estate, watching in my rearview mirror as the mansion grew smaller, its lights twinkling like stars I'd supposedly never reach. My phone started buzzing before I even hit the main road. I ignored it, knowing it was probably Sophia's mother, Victoria, trying to smooth things over, or maybe her brother James, offering awkward solidarity. They weren't bad people, just weak ones, too afraid of Harold to ever stand up to him. But I had more important calls to make. I voice-dialed my assistant as I merged onto the highway. "Catherine, I know it's late. Mr. Cross, is everything all right?" Catherine had been with me for 6 years. Since before the world knew who Adrian Cross really was, she could read my moods like a book. "Cancel the Blackwood Industries merger." Silence. Then, "Sir, we're supposed to sign papers on Monday. The due diligence is complete. Financing is secured." "I'm aware. Kill it. The termination fees alone will be." "I don't care about the fees. Send the notice to their legal team tonight. Cite irreconcilable differences in corporate culture and vision." "Adrian." Catherine dropped the formalities, which she only did when she thought I was making a mistake. "This is a $2 billion deal, whatever happened at dinner." He called me trash, Cat, in front of a room full of people, made it clear that someone like me will never be good enough for his family or, by extension, his business. That bastard. Catherine's fingers were already flying across her keyboard. I could hear it through the phone. "I'll have legal draw up the termination papers within the hour. Want me to leak it to the financial press?" "Not yet. Let him wake up to the official notice first. We'll let the media have it by noon tomorrow." "With pleasure, sir. Anything else?" I thought for a moment. "Yes. Set up a meeting with Pinnacle Corp for Monday. If Blackwood Industries won't sell, maybe their biggest competitor will." Catherine laughed. "You're going to buy his rival instead?" "Why not? Trash has to stick together, right?" I hung up and drove the rest of the way to my penthouse in silence. The city lights blurred past, each one a reminder of how far I'd come from the kid who'd slept in shelters and survived on free school lunches. Harold Blackwood thought he knew me, thought he'd researched enough to understand what kind of man was dating his daughter. He knew I'd grown up poor, that I'd started working at 14, that I'd put myself through community college and then university through sheer determination and an unhealthy amount of caffeine. What he didn't know was that the scrappy kid he looked down on had built a corporate empire while staying in the shadows, that Cross Technologies, the company his own firm was desperately trying to merge with to stay relevant in the tech age, was mine, that I'd spent the last decade acquiring patents, poaching talent, and strategically positioning myself to become the kingmaker in our industry. He didn't know because I'd kept it quiet, using holding companies and trusted executives as the face of my operations. I'd learned early that real power came from being underestimated, from letting blowhards like Harold think they held all the cards. My phone rang as I pulled into my building's garage. Harold CFO, Martin Webb. That was faster than expected. Adrian, it's Martin. I'm sorry to call so late, but we just received a notice from Cross Technologies terminating the merger agreement. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Martin. But we're set to sign Monday. The board has already approved. Shareholders are expecting. Then the board should have thought about that before their CEO publicly humiliated me at dinner tonight. Silence. Then, quietly, what did Harold do? Ask him yourself. I'm sure he'll give you his version. Good night, Martin. I hung up and headed to my penthouse, pouring myself a scotch and settling onto the balcony to watch the city sleep. Somewhere out there, Harold Blackwood was about to have his evening ruined. I wondered if he'd make the connection immediately or if it would take him a while to realize that the trash he'd dismissed controlled the one thing his company needed to survive the next fiscal year. My phone buzzed. Sophia calling. I let it go to voicemail, not trusting myself to separate my anger at her father from my love for her. She didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire, but some battles couldn't be avoided. By morning, my phone had logged 47 missed calls. Harold had tried reaching me 6 times himself, which must have been killing him. The great Harold Blackwood, reduced to repeatedly calling someone he'd declared trash. I was reviewing quarterly reports over breakfast when Catherine called. The financial press got wind of the terminated merger. Bloomberg wants a statement. Tell them Cross Technologies has decided to explore other opportunities that better align with our values and vision for the future. Vague and devastating. I love it. She paused. Also, Harold Blackwood is in the lobby. I nearly spit out my coffee. He's here? Showed up 20 minutes ago. Security won't let him up without your approval, but he's making quite a scene. Should I have him removed? No. I set down my mug, thinking, send him up, but make him wait in the conference room for, let's say 30 minutes. I'm finishing breakfast. You're evil. I'll prep conference room C, the one with the uncomfortable chairs. 45 minutes later, I walked into the conference room to find Harold Blackwood looking significantly less imposing than he had the night before. His usual perfect hair was disheveled, his tie askew. The man who'd lorded over dinner like a king now looked like what he was, a desperate CEO watching his company's future evaporate. Adrian. He stood when I entered, and I could see how much it cost him. Thank you for seeing me. I sat down without offering him a handshake. You have 5 minutes. He swallowed his pride like broken glass. I apologize for last night. My words were inappropriate. Inappropriate? I laughed. You called me trash in front of your entire social circle. You humiliated me in your own home, at your own table, while I was there as your guest and your daughter's fiancé. I was drunk. No. I cut him off. You were honest. Drunk words, sober thoughts. You thought I was beneath you from the moment Sophia introduced us. Last night you just finally said it out loud. Harold's jaw tightened. Even now, even desperate, he couldn't fully hide his disdain. What do you want? An apology? You have it. A public statement? I'll make one. Just, the merger needs to happen. You know it does. Why? Excuse me? Why does it need to happen? Explain to me why I should do business with someone who fundamentally disrespects me. Harold's face flushed. Because it's business. It's not personal. Everything is personal when you make it personal. I stood up. You researched me, right? Dug into my background? Found out about the foster homes, the free lunch programs, the night shifts at warehouses to pay for textbooks? He nodded reluctantly. But you stopped there. You saw where I came from and assumed that defined me. You never looked at where I was going. I walked to the window, gesturing at the city below. Do you know why Cross Technologies is successful, Harold? Because you have good products. Because I remember being hungry. Because I remember being dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. Every person we hire, every deal we make, every product we develop, I ask myself if we're creating opportunity or just protecting privilege. I turned back to him. Your company represents everything I built mine to fight against. Old money protecting old ideas, keeping the door closed to anyone who didn't inherit their seat at the table. That's not. Isn't it? Name one person on your board who didn't go to an Ivy League school. One executive who grew up below the poverty line. One senior manager who had to work 3 jobs to put themselves through community college. His silence was answer enough. The merger is dead, Harold. Not because you insulted me, but because you showed me who you really are. And more importantly, you showed me who your company really is. This will destroy us, he said quietly. Without this merger, Blackwood Industries won't survive the next 2 years. Then maybe it shouldn't. I headed for the door. Maybe it's time for the old guard to make way for companies that judge people by their potential, not their pedigree. Wait. He stood up so fast his chair tipped over. What about Sophia? You're going to destroy her father's company? Her inheritance? I paused at the door. Sophia is brilliant, talented, and capable. She doesn't need to inherit success, she can build her own. That's the difference between us, Harold. You see inheritance as destiny. I see it as a crutch. She'll never forgive you. Maybe not. But at least she'll know I have principles that can't be bought or intimidated away. Can you say the same? I left him there and went back to my office. Catherine was waiting with a stack of messages and a knowing look. Pinnacle Corp wants to meet Monday morning. They're very interested in discussing an acquisition. Good. Make sure Harold hears about it by this afternoon. Already arranged for the information to leak. She paused. Sophia is in your private office. My heart skipped. How long? About an hour. I brought her coffee and tissues. I found Sophia curled up in my desk chair, eyes red but dry. She looked up when I entered, and I saw her father's strength but her mother's kindness in her face. Hi, she said softly. Hi. I heard what you told him. Catherine let me watch on the conference room feed. I sat on the edge of my desk. And I think. She stood up, coming to stand between my knees. I think I've been a coward. Letting him treat you that way, making excuses, hoping it would get better. Soph. No, let me finish. She took my hands. I've spent my whole life benefiting from his prejudices without challenging them. Last night, watching him, I was ashamed. Not of you. Of him. Of myself for not standing up to him sooner. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you'll have me, I want to build something new. With you. Without my family's money or connections or conditional approval. I pulled her close. Are you sure? He's right about one thing, walking away from that inheritance is no small thing. She laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd heard in days. Adrian Cross, you just terminated a $2 billion merger because my father disrespected you. I think we'll figure out the money part. I love you, I said, meaning it more than ever. I love you too. Even if you did just declare corporate war on my father. Especially because I declared corporate war on your father? Especially because of that, she agreed, kissing me. My phone buzzed. Catherine again. Sir, Harold Blackwood is holding an emergency board meeting. Our sources say they're discussing reaching out to you directly, over his head. I put the phone on speaker. Tell them Cross Technologies might be willing to discuss a merger with Blackwood Industries under new leadership. Emphasis on new. Sophia's eyes widened. You're going to oust my father from his own company? I'm going to give the board a choice, evolve or perish. What they do with that choice is up to them. She thought about it for a moment, then nodded. He won't go quietly. I wouldn't expect him to. This is going to get ugly. Probably. My mother will cry. Definitely. My brother will write another terrible song about family drama. God help us all. She smiled, and it was sharp and beautiful and a little bit dangerous. So when do we start? I smiled back. How about now? And that's how the nobody dating the princess became the king who toppled the kingdom. Not with a sword or an army, but with a simple truth: respect isn't inherited. It's earned. And those who refuse to give it when it's earned? Well, they learn the hard way that sometimes the trash takes itself out, and takes everything else with it. By the following Monday, Harold Blackwood was no longer CEO of Blackwood Industries. By Tuesday, Cross Technologies had announced a merger with the newly restructured company. By Wednesday, Sophia had accepted a position as our new head of strategic development, turning down her father's offer to fund a rival venture out of spite. And by Thursday? Well, by Thursday, Harold Blackwood had learned the most expensive lesson of his life. Never call someone trash unless you're prepared to be thrown out with it.
The lasagna was perfect, which should have been my first warning. Mom only made her famous 5-cheese lasagna when she needed something or was about to drop a bomb. As I sat at the dining table in my childhood home, watching my family pass around garlic bread and salad, I wondered which it would be tonight. "So, Iris," my father started, clearing his throat in that way that meant a prepared speech was coming. "We've been doing some thinking as a family." "As a family. Code for without you." "Oh." I kept my tone neutral, cutting into my lasagna. "About your situation," Mom added helpfully, as if I had a situation that needed addressing. "I lived alone in a 4-bedroom house in Westwood. Worked as a software architect. Had no debt, no drama, no situation that I was aware of. But in my family's eyes, being 34 and single apparently qualified as a crisis." "What situation would that be?" I asked. "Living in that big house all alone," my sister Penelope chimed in, unable to contain herself any longer. At 29, she still lived at home, her third attempt at a master's degree recently abandoned for a gap year that was entering its second year. "I like my space," I said simply. "But it's so wasteful." Mom protested. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, for one person. That I pay for. With my job. That I work hard at. "That's actually what we wanted to discuss," Dad said, shooting Mom a look that said stick to the script. "We think we found a perfect solution." I set down my fork. Here it came. "Penelope's been having a hard time," Mom began, reaching over to stroke my sister's hair like she was 12 instead of nearly 30. "The job market is so tough for her generation." "The job market is excellent for software developers," I pointed out. "I could get her interviews." "You know she's not a tech person," Dad interrupted. "She's creative. Artistic. Those fields are harder to break into." Penelope had been breaking into various artistic fields for a decade. Photography, jewelry making, life coaching. Most recently, candle making, which had left Mom's garage full of unsold inventory and the house perpetually smelling of vanilla lavender catastrophe. "Anyway," Mom continued, "we've decided the best solution is for Penny to move in with you." At a family dinner, my sister said, "Mom and Daddy promised I could live with you." The words hung in the air like the scent of failed candle ventures. I carefully took a sip of water, organizing my thoughts. "You decided this?" I asked slowly, without asking me. "Well, we knew you'd say yes." Penelope beamed. "You're always so generous." "And Mom and Dad said it makes perfect sense. I can have the whole second floor, turn one bedroom into my craft studio, use another for inventory storage." "Inventory storage," I repeated. "For my new business. Customized therapy journals. It's going to be huge. I just need a space to work and someone to help with startup costs, and you have both." "We've even worked out a timeline." Dad pulled out an actual printed spreadsheet. "Penny can move in next weekend. We figured she'll need about 6 months to get established, maybe a year." 2 years max, Mom added, "just until she's on her feet." "And we thought she could pay you a little rent," Dad continued, "maybe $200 a month, just to contribute something." I looked at the spreadsheet. They planned everything. Which bedroom would be hers? The master guest room with the ensuite bathroom. Which room would be her studio, my home office? Where her boyfriend Derek could park when he stayed over, my garage. "Derek's staying over?" I asked. "Well, they're practically married," Mom said. "You can't expect them to never see each other." Derek. The unemployed DJ who lived in his van and had borrowed, and never returned. $500 from me last Christmas. So let me understand, I said slowly. Penelope is moving into my house, taking over 2 rooms, paying less than a storage unit would cost, and bringing her boyfriend. For 2 years. And you've all decided this without asking me. When you put it like that, it sounds bad. Penelope pouted. I thought sisters helped each other. When have you helped me? The question slipped out before I could stop it. What's that supposed to mean? She looked genuinely confused. When I was working 3 jobs to buy that house, where were you? When I needed help moving. When I was sick last year and needed someone to pick up groceries. I had things going on, she said defensively. You know I don't handle stress well. Right. But you can handle the stress of running a business from my house. That's different. That's creative stress. Good stress. Iris, my mother's voice took on that disappointed tone I'd heard my whole life. Family helps family. You have space. Penelope needs space. It's simple math. I sipped my water and replied, That's awkward. I sold the house last Friday to a couple. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 houses down. You? What? My father's voice cracked. Sold it. Closed on Friday. The new owners take possession in 30 days. But, Mom sputtered. You can't sell a house that fast. There are inspections. Paperwork. Cash offer, I said calmly, cutting another bite of lasagna. They waived inspection. Been in escrow for 45 days. Amazing what you can accomplish when your family doesn't know your business. Why would you sell your house? Penelope wailed. Where will you live? Already bought a new place. Smaller. 2-bedroom condo in a building with very strict HOA rules about guests and home businesses. You bought another place without telling us? Dad's face was turning red. Did you tell me when you promised Penelope she could live in my house? When you planned out which rooms she'd take? When you decided my garage would be Derek's parking spot? That's different. How? Because we're your parents. Mom slammed her hand on the table. We have a right to know about major decisions. Like Penelope moving in with me? That was supposed to be a discussion. No, it was supposed to be an ambush. You made her favorite meal. You printed spreadsheets. You promised her my space before even mentioning it to me. I took another bite. This really is excellent lasagna, by the way. I can't believe you'd do this to me. Penelope's eyes filled with tears. Mom and Dad promised. They said you'd take care of me. I'm not your parent, I said gently. I'm your sister. And I've been taking care of you since we were kids. Giving you my toys, my clothes, my time, my money. When does it end? When she's stable, Mom snapped. She's 30 in 6 months. If she's not stable now, when will she be? You don't understand, Penelope cried. Some of us didn't get the tech brain. Some of us struggle. You don't struggle. You quit. Photography, quit when the classes got hard. Jewelry, quit when the first craft fair didn't go well. Life coaching, quit when you realized you needed certification. Candles, those didn't sell because of market saturation. They didn't sell because they smelled like a headache feels. Iris, my father stood. That's enough. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. For once. So what are we supposed to do now? Mom demanded. Penelope can't keep living here. We're converting her room into a gym. I nearly choked on my water. You're kicking her out? Not kicking out. Transitioning. We're retired. We deserve our space too. So your solution was to make her my problem? Our solution was family helping family. No, your solution was me helping Penelope while you help yourselves to a home gym. You've ruined everything, Penelope sobbed. Where am I supposed to go? Derek has a van, I suggested. That's not funny. Nether is planning to take over my house without asking. Who bought it? Dad asked suddenly. Maybe we can talk to them. Explain the situation. The Guyans. Lovely couple. 3 kids. They're so excited about the neighborhood. Kids? Mom perked up. Maybe they need a nanny. They both work from home, I said, crushing that hope. And their kids are teenagers. This is a disaster, Penelope wailed. I told everyone I was moving to Westwood. I already updated my Instagram bio. Without even asking me first. Mom said you'd say yes. She said you owed us for all the years they supported you. I set down my fork carefully. Supported me? I got a full scholarship. Worked through college. Bought my own car, my own house, paid my own bills since I was 18. Emotional support, Mom clarified. You mean the emotional support of being told I was too focused on career? That I'd die alone? That I was selfish for not wanting kids? That emotional support? We worry about you. You worry about yourselves. You worry that I won't be available to fix everyone's problems. That's not true, Dad protested. When did you last call me just to talk? Not because you needed money, or tech support, or someone to bail out Penelope. Silence. That's what I thought. So where's this new condo? Mom asked stiffly. At least tell us where you'll be living. No. 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 You'll show up. Make demands. Promise Penelope a key. I need boundaries. Boundaries? Penelope spit the word like profanity. From your own family? Especially from my family. I can't believe you're being so selfish, she stood dramatically. This was supposed to be my fresh start. It still can be. Just not in my house. What house? You sold it. Without telling anyone. And you plan to move into it without asking. Seems fair. It's not the same. You're right. One of us made decisions about our own property. The other tried to make decisions about someone else's. Mom. Penelope turned to our mother. Do something. What exactly should she do? I asked. Ground me? I'm 34. You could have at least given us warning, Dad said. We could have made other arrangements. You had Penelope's entire life to make other arrangements. Instead, you enabled every quit, funded every failed venture, and then decided I should take over because you're tired. We're not tired, Mom protested. We just think at our age. You're 62. Not 92. Plenty young enough to keep housing your adult daughter. The gym equipment is already ordered, she said weakly. Cancel it. Or set it up in the garage next to the therapy journals that won't sell. This isn't how family acts, Penelope said. No. How does family act? By making plans for other people's homes, by assuming their money is communal, by treating them like a backup plan, by helping each other. I've helped. Bought your camera equipment, paid for your jewelry supplies, invested in your candles. When does it become Penelope helping Penelope? I need more time. You've had a decade of more time. I hate you, she said quietly. No, you hate that I'm not playing my assigned role anymore. What role? The responsible sister who fixes everything while asking for nothing. You don't ask for anything because you don't need anything. I don't ask because I learned early that my needs don't matter in this family, only yours do. That's not true. Name one time, just one, when this family put my needs first. Silence stretched. Mom opened her mouth several times and closed it. Dad shuffled papers. Penelope glared. I'm going. I stood, placing my napkin on the table. Thank you for dinner. You can't just leave, Mom protested. Watch me. What about Penelope? What about her? She's an adult. You're adults. Figure it out. Where will she live? Wherever she chooses to afford. Iris, please. Penelope grabbed my arm. I'm sorry, okay. I should have asked. But I really do need help. I know, I said gently. But needing help and deserving help are different things. You've had help your whole life. Has it actually helped? Or just enabled you to avoid growing up? That's mean. It's true. And deep down, you know it. She let go of my arm. So you're really abandoning me? I'm setting you free. No more safety net means you'll finally have to learn to fly. What if I fall? Then you'll learn to get back up, like everyone else. I headed for the door, my family trailing behind like confused ducklings. At least tell us when you're moving, Mom called. Already moved. Been staying there 2 weeks. You never notice because you only call when you need something. 2 weeks? Dad looked stunned. But you've been here for dinners. From my new place. 15 minutes away. Far enough for privacy. Close enough if there's a real emergency. This feels like an emergency, Penelope said. No, this feels like consequences. I opened the door to leave, then turned back. Penelope, a word of advice. She looked up hopefully. That couple who bought my house, they're looking for someone to help with social media for their business. Real job, real pay, real opportunity to build something. I don't know anything about social media marketing. Neither did I when I started in tech. The difference is, I learned. You think I should apply? I think you should do something other than wait for rescue. Will you put in a good word? No. You'll succeed or fail on your own merit. That's what adults do. I left them standing in the doorway. 3 adults who just realized their safety net had moved addresses without leaving a forwarding number. My new condo was peaceful. Smaller, yes, but mine in a way the house had never been. No spare rooms for family to claim. No garage for Durex van. No space for anyone's failed business ventures but my own. My phone buzzed all evening. Texts from Mom about family loyalty. Calls from Dad about disappointing them. Instagram messages from Penelope about ruining her life. I turned it off and made tea in my compact kitchen, looking out at the city lights from my 10th floor window. Tomorrow, they'd still be angry. Penelope would still need rescuing. Mom and Dad would still expect me to provide it. But tonight, in my undisclosed location, with my strict HOA, and my boundaries intact, I was free. The house in Westwood would shelter the Nguyen family, who'd create their own memories in those rooms. And Penelope, she'd either figure it out or she wouldn't. But for the first time in her life, it wouldn't be my problem. Family helps family, Mom always said. But sometimes the best help you can give is refusing to help at all.
The baby shower was perfect, like something out of a Pinterest board. Blush pink and gold balloons, a dessert table that looked too beautiful to eat, and little games with prizes racked and tall. I stood in the corner, holding my gift, a handmade quilt I'd spent 3 months creating, each square representing a milestone in my daughter Olivia's life. Can I have everyone's attention? Olivia clinked her champagne flute, filled with sparkling cider, against her wedding ring. The backyard full of guests turned toward her, all smiles and anticipation. My heart swelled with pride. My baby girl, 27 years old, married, successful in her marketing career, about to become a mother herself. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed, had led to this moment. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, Olivia began, her hand resting on her 7-month bump. And I have a special announcement to make. I straightened up, thinking perhaps she'd reveal the baby's name or thank me for planning the shower. Even though her stepmother Carolyn had taken credit for the organization, I'd done most of the actual work, sending invitations, coordinating catering, assembling party favors during my lunch breaks. As you all know, family is everything to me, Olivia continued, and I'm so grateful that my baby will have such an amazing grandmother. I smiled, ready for the acknowledgement. Carolyn. Olivia turned to where my ex-husband Mark's wife sat in a place of honor. You're going to be the real grandma to this baby. Thank you for showing me what it means to prioritize family. Unlike some people, you were always there, never too busy with work to show up. The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped my gift tighter, the fabric of the quilt rough against my suddenly sweaty palms. Olivia wasn't done. My mom never had time for us growing up. Always at the hospital, always on call, always missing the important moments. But Carolyn, you showed me what a real mother looks like. Someone who puts family first. And I know you'll be the grandmother my baby deserves. The backyard fell silent except for the awkward shifting of guests who knew our family history. My sister Claire shot me a horrified look from across the garden. Even some of Olivia's friends looked uncomfortable. I set my gift down on the nearest table, picked up my purse, and walked out. No scene, no tears. Just a quiet exit from my daughter's perfect baby shower, where I'd been publicly designated as the grandmother who wouldn't matter. The drive home was a blur. I made it to my apartment before the shaking started. 27 years. 27 years of working double shifts as an ER physician to provide for Olivia after Mark left us for his secretary, now his wife Carolyn. Never had time for us. I laughed bitterly, pacing my living room. I thought about all those missed moments Olivia referenced. Yes, I'd missed some school plays while saving lives in the emergency room. Yes, I'd been late to parent-teacher conferences because traumas don't follow school schedules. Yes, there were birthday parties where I showed up still in scrubs, exhausted from a 36-hour shift. But I was also the one who held her through every illness, who paid for her college without a single loan, who worked extra shifts to afford her dance classes, her piano lessons, her study abroad program in Paris. I was the one who made sure she had everything she needed, even if it meant I went without. And Carolyn had swooped in when Olivia was 15, when the hard work was done, when the sleepless nights with a colicky baby were over, when the endless driving to activities was finished, when the expensive years of raising a child had passed. Carolyn got to be the fun stepmom with her part-time real estate job and her flexible schedule. She got to attend afternoon recitals and weekend tournaments because someone else, me, was paying the bills. My phone buzzed. Claire. Jenna, what the hell was that? I'm about to go full auntie on your daughter. Don't, I said tiredly. Let her have her moment. Her moment of what? Publicly humiliating the woman who sacrificed everything for her. She's made her choice. Carolyn is going to be the real grandmother. I'm just the one who was never there. Jenna. I need to go, Claire. I'll call you later. I hung up and did what I always did when life hurt too much. I dove into work. But this time, I also dove into my finances. The college fund I'd started the day Olivia was born contributed to faithfully even when it meant I ate ramen for dinner, closed and transferred to my retirement account. The savings account earmarked for baby expenses, the one I'd been building to help with the astronomical costs of childcare, redirected to a vacation fund. I'd always wanted to see Greece. The check I'd written for the daycare deposit at the prestigious center near Olivia's house. Cancelled. The nursery furniture set I'd ordered as a surprise to be delivered next week. Order cancelled, full refund requested. The family health insurance plan that still covered Olivia because I'd kept her on as a dependent, she'd be removed at the next enrollment period. Every financial tie, every plan support, every safety net I'd quietly maintained, gone. If Carolyn was going to be the real grandmother, she could handle the real costs too. Monday came with its usual chaos at the hospital. I threw myself into my work, the one place where my presence mattered, where being there made a difference between life and death. It was Tuesday evening when my phone exploded with calls. First Olivia, then Mark, then a number I didn't recognize. I was in the middle of suturing a particularly nasty laceration and ignored them all. During my break, I listened to the first voicemail. Olivia, panicked. Mom, the daycare called. They said the deposit check bounced. That's not possible. Can you call me back? Mark, angry. Jenna, what's this about canceling the nursery furniture? Olivia's in tears. The boutique called to say the order was canceled and the items are no longer available. The unknown number revealed to be Olivia's husband, Paul. Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you, but Olivia's really upset. Could you please call us back? We don't understand what's happening with the daycare and the furniture. She's 7 months pregnant and the stress isn't good for her. Paul. Sweet Paul, who had no idea his wife had just publicly dismissed the woman funding their child's future. I called him back. Paul, hello, I got your message. Oh, thank God, Mrs. T. Olivia's beside herself. The daycare is saying we never paid the deposit, but she swears you were handling it. And the nursery furniture. Yes, I canceled both. Silence. Then, I'm sorry, what? Why? Didn't Olivia tell you? Carolyn is going to be the baby's real grandmother. The one who prioritizes family. I assumed she'd want to handle these grandmother duties as well. Mrs. T, I don't understand. Ask your wife about her speech at the baby shower. About how I never had time for her. About how Carolyn showed her what a real mother looks like. Then ask yourself why someone who was never there would be expected to pay for daycare. She said, "What?" His voice was sharp now, confused. "Paul, you're a good man. But your wife made it very clear that I'm not the grandmother who matters, so I'm stepping back and letting the real grandmother step up." "Mrs. Stee, we can't afford. The daycare deposit alone is $3,000. The furniture was another $4,000. We budgeted thinking. You budgeted thinking I'd cover it. Like I've covered everything for 27 years while being told I was never there. This has to be a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding." Olivia was very clear. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have patients to attend to. The job that kept me too busy to be a real mother." I hung up and went back to work. The next few days were a masterclass in consequences. Olivia called repeatedly, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails. "Mom, please call me back. The daycare gave our spot to someone else. Mom, Paul told me what you said. That's not what I meant at the shower. Mom, we can't find nursery furniture anywhere that will deliver before the baby comes. Mom, please, I'm stressed and the doctor says my blood pressure is elevated." That last one almost got me. Almost. But then I remembered standing in that backyard, holding a quilt made with love, listening to my daughter erase 27 years of sacrifice in favor of a woman who'd been around for 12. Mark called next, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Jenna, this is ridiculous. You're punishing Olivia for a few poorly chosen words." Poorly chosen. She planned that speech, Mark. She stood up at an event I helped organize and told everyone that Carolyn was the only mother figure who mattered. She was trying to make Carolyn feel included. By excluding me. By dismissing everything I did. Tell me, Mark, where was Carolyn when Olivia had pneumonia at age 3? When she needed emergency surgery at 7? When she cried for a week straight after you left us? That's not fair. No, what's not fair is working myself to the bone for 27 years only to be told I was never there. What's not fair is being erased in favor of your wife who got to play mommy after all the hard work was done. So you're going to what? Abandon your daughter when she needs you most. I'm giving her what she asked for. A grandmother who prioritizes family. Carolyn prioritizes family, right? So let her prioritize this. Carolyn can't afford to be the grandmother she's been playing at being. How interesting. The real explosion came Saturday morning. Olivia showed up at my door, 7 months pregnant and furious. "How could you?" she demanded, pushing past me into my apartment. "How could you cancel everything without telling me? How could you stand up at your baby shower and tell everyone I was an absent mother?" I countered, closing the door calmly. "I didn't say absent. You said I never had time for you, that I was always too busy with work, that Carolyn showed you what a real mother looks like. I was trying to honor her. By dishonoring me." Olivia sank onto my couch, her anger deflating. "I didn't mean it that way. Stop saying that. You meant exactly what you said. You've been saying it in little ways for years. Every time you thanked Carolyn for being at some event and pointedly didn't thank me for paying for it. Every time you posted on social media about your bonus mom who chose to love you while I was working to keep you fed and housed. Mom, do you know why I missed your junior high production of Annie? Because you were working. Because a 6-year-old came in coding. Car accident. I was the only doctor available who could save her. So yes, I chose to save a life over watching you sing tomorrow. And you've held it against me ever since." Tears were streaming down Olivia's face now. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You just let Carolyn convince you that I was a bad mother because I had a demanding career. Never mind that career paid for everything you had. Mom, I'm sorry. I know you are. You're sorry because the daycare spot is gone and the furniture is canceled and suddenly the grandmother who was never there is the only one who could actually provide for your child. That's not why. Isn't it? Tell me, Olivia. If I reinstate everything right now, pay for the daycare, buy new furniture, continue being your financial safety net, what changes? Do I suddenly become the real grandmother, or do I go back to being the one who works too much while Carolyn gets the credit? She couldn't answer. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to figure this out with your husband and your real grandmother. You're going to learn what it actually costs to raise a child. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand that being there isn't just about showing up to recitals. It's about working doubles to pay for the recital costume. It's about missing a recital because you're saving lives to afford the recital lessons. Mom, please. The baby. We'll be fine. You have a good husband, a decent job, and a stepmother who prioritizes family. You'll figure it out. I did, with far less support and a toddler to raise alone. Olivia left, still crying. I felt no satisfaction, only a deep, bone-weary sadness. The next 2 weeks were a cascade of family drama. Claire read Olivia the riot act. My mother, usually neutral, told Olivia she was ashamed to have a granddaughter who could be so cruel. Paul, caught in the middle, tried to mediate but was clearly struggling with his new understanding of his wife's character. And Carolyn? Carolyn was conspicuously silent. Until she wasn't. She called on a Tuesday afternoon. "Jenna," she started, her voice lacking its usual artificial warmth. "We need to talk about this situation." "What situation? You're the real grandmother. Handle it." "You know I can't afford." "Can't afford what?" "To be the grandmother you've been pretending to be. To actually support the family you claim to prioritize. That's not fair. Mark and I have our own expenses. So did I, a mortgage, student loans, a child to raise alone. Didn't stop me from providing everything Olivia needed. This is petty. This is reality. You wanted the title without the responsibility. You wanted to be the fun grandma who shows up for photos while I handle the bills. Not anymore. She's your daughter. And according to her, you're her real mother figure. So figure it out. I hung up on her, something I'd wanted to do for 12 years. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. Olivia was 8 months pregnant, stressed and desperate. The daycare situation was a disaster. Every good place had wait lists, and the ones available were either too expensive or too far from her work. Without my connections in the community, she was just another name on a list. Paul called me, and for the first time he was angry. Not at me, at his wife. "I need you to know something," he said. I didn't know. About the shower, about what she said. I was in the garage with the guys, helping set up. I only found out when my mother told me. She was appalled. "Paul." "No, please let me finish. I've spent 3 weeks watching my pregnant wife scramble to fix problems she created. Watching her expect Carolyn to step up and seeing Carolyn make excuses. Watching her slowly realize that the mother she dismissed is the only one who actually supported her. What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. I want you to know that I see you. I see what you did for Olivia, and I'm sorry my wife doesn't. Is she taking care of herself? The stress. She's okay. Her blood pressure is better. Her mom, her dad, and Carolyn, they finally contributed some money for a cheaper daycare. Not what you had arranged, but it'll work." "Good. Mrs. T. I grew up with a single mom too. Worked 2 jobs, missed some stuff, but never missed the important things, like making sure I had what I needed. Olivia, she confused presence with presence, but I think she's starting to understand the difference." That evening, Olivia called. Her voice was different, subdued. "Real? Mom, I know you probably don't want to talk to me. I'll always talk to you, Olivia. You're my daughter, even if I'm not the grandmother who matters." "You are," she said quietly. "You're the only one who matters. I was stupid and cruel. And I bought into this idea that love looks like showing up to every event with a camera and posting about it on Facebook. Carolyn was always there because she could be. You weren't because you were working. For me, for us." I didn't respond, letting her work through it. "Do you know what Carolyn said when I asked her to help with the daycare deposit? She said they couldn't afford it because they're renovating their kitchen. Their kitchen, Mom, while I'm trying to figure out how to afford care for their grandchild." "I see." "No, you saw. You saw it all along. That she was performative. That her prioritizing family only extended to the fun parts. Not the hard parts. Not the expensive parts. Not the sacrificial parts. What do you want from me, Olivia?" "Nothing," she said, surprising me. "I mean, God, yes. I need help. Paul and I are drowning trying to figure this out on our income alone. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I need my mom. My real mom. The one who worked 36-hour shifts and still made it to my high school graduation. The one who taught me strength even if I was too blind to see it. Olivia. I'm calling because I'm about to become a mother and I'm terrified. Because I don't know how to do what you did. How to sacrifice without making your child feel guilty. How to provide without keeping score. How to love someone so much that you'll work yourself to exhaustion just to give them opportunities. You'll learn, I said softly. Every mother does. Will you teach me? Not Carolyn with her Pinterest-perfect ideas of motherhood. You, the woman who actually did it. We talked for 2 hours. About motherhood, sacrifice, the weight of providing, the exhaustion of being everything to a tiny person who depends on you. About how love sometimes looks like missing the dance recital because you're stitching up someone else's child in the ER. I have something for you, I said finally. Your baby shower gift. I never got to give it to you. The quilt, she whispered. Aunt Claire told me about it, said you'd worked on it for months. Every square is a memory. Your first Christmas, your first day of school, your college acceptance letter. All the moments I was there for, even if you don't remember them all. She was crying again. Can I come see it? Can we start over? We can try. It wasn't instant. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But slowly, carefully, we began again. Olivia would come over, and I'd teach her what I knew about babies, about motherhood, about surviving on no sleep and too much caffeine. I helped with the baby expenses, not as much as I'd originally planned, but enough. More importantly, I helped with the knowledge, the support, the 3 AM phone calls when the baby wouldn't stop crying. Carolyn faded into the background, showing up for scheduled visits and photo opportunities, but never for the hard nights or difficult decisions. The baby came on a Tuesday, of course, while I was at work. But this time, I was able to leave, to be there when my granddaughter entered the world. Olivia grabbed my hand in the delivery room. Mom, she said through the pain, I need you. I need my mom. I'm your baby. I'm always here, even when it looks like I'm not. Later, as I held my granddaughter for the first time, Olivia said quietly, I want her to know her grandmother, her real grandmother. The one who saves lives and sacrifices everything and loves beyond measure. She will, I promised. I'm naming her after you, she added. If that's okay, Jenna Marie. After the strongest woman I know. I cried then, 27 years of complicated love, misunderstanding, and sacrifice, wrapped up in a tiny person with my name. Mom, Olivia said, I'm sorry it took me so long to see you, really see you. You see me now, I said, handing her the baby. That's what matters. And it was. Not the public declaration at the baby shower, not the years of feeling unseen, but this moment in a hospital room that smelled like my second home, with 3 generations of women who understood that love sometimes wears scrubs and works double shifts and misses recitals to save for futures. That's what real grandmothers do. They show up when it counts, even if it's not always when you want them to. Especially then.
The grandfather clock in my parents' formal living room chimed 6 o'clock as my father stood at the head of the table, clearing his throat with the same theatrical gravity he used for quarterly board meetings. We are giving everything to your brother, he announced, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling, while my mother nodded like a perfectly synchronized puppet. He deserves it. You get anything. I set down my water glass with deliberate precision, feeling the weight of the document in my jacket pocket as I smiled at the 2 people who'd just disowned me financially. That's fine. Grandma's trust already kicked in last month. I don't need your money anymore. Had they really spent weeks planning this grand disinheritance scene, never once wondering why their formerly desperate daughter had stopped asking for help with rent 3 months ago? The silence that followed could have choked an elephant. My brother Brandon, who'd been practically vibrating with anticipation, froze mid-reach for the champagne they clearly prepared for celebration. My mother's perfectly Botoxed face attempted surprise, but achieved only a slight widening of her eyes. My father's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. What trust? Mom finally managed, her voice climbing to that pitch she used when reality didn't align with her plans. The Evelyn Morrison Grandchildren's Trust, I said, pulling the documents from my pocket. Established 1987. Scheduled to mature when the eldest grandchild turned 35. Which happened to be me, last month. Brandon's champagne flute hit the table. That's impossible. Grandma didn't have any money. Grandma had plenty of money, I corrected. She just didn't have money you knew about. Funny how that works when you actually visit someone in their nursing home instead of just waiting for them to die. My father snatched the papers from my hand, his reading glasses materializing from his breast pocket. I watched his face change colors as he processed the numbers. First red, then white, then an interesting shade of purple. $3 million, he whispered. 3.7 actually, I said. Plus the property portfolio. Turns out Grandma was quite the investor. All those silly penny stocks she bought in the 60s. Several of them became Fortune 500 companies. My mother wobbled on her designer heels. But we're her children. That money should have come to us. Should it? I asked. The same children who put her in the cheapest nursing home you could find? Who visited her exactly twice in 5 years? Who tried to have her declared incompetent so you could access her accounts? We were protecting her, Dad protested. You were protecting yourselves from the possibility she might spend her own money on her care, I said. Lucky for you, she saw that coming. That's why she set up the trust for her grandchildren instead. Brandon finally found his voice. Grandchildren. Plural. That means I get half. I actually laughed. Brandon, when's the last time you saw Grandma? He shifted uncomfortably. I've been busy with the company. The company Dad gave you after you failed out of business school, I noted. The one hemorrhaging money because you spend more time on the golf course than in the office. But to answer your question, no, you don't get half. I pulled out another document. The trust has very specific conditions. Recipients must have maintained regular contact with the grantor, defined as monthly visits minimum. Must have completed higher education without financial support from the trust. Must be employed in a position that, and I quote, contributes positively to society rather than merely extracting from it. That's discrimination, Brandon shouted. That's Grandma, I countered. She watched you very carefully, Brandon. Watched you take credit for other people's work. Watched you treat service workers like furniture. Watched you become exactly the kind of person she despised. My father had moved on to the second page, his face growing paler. The properties, these addresses. 6 rental properties in Manhattan, I confirmed. 2 commercial buildings in Brooklyn. And the crown jewel. That worthless shack in the Hamptons you always mocked her for keeping. It's worth $12 million now. We'll contest this, Mom said, her voice shaking. No court will uphold such a discriminatory document. Feel free to try, I said. Grandma used the best estate lawyers in the city. The same ones who handled the Vanderbilt trusts. Every word is ironclad. But more importantly, contesting means discovery. Do you really want lawyers digging into your financial history? Into why Grandma felt the need to protect her assets from her own children? The room fell silent again. I could practically see the wheels turning in their heads, calculating angles, looking for loopholes. Besides, I continued, you just announced you're giving everything to Brandon. Clearly, you don't think I deserve inheritance. Why should Grandma have felt differently? That's different, Dad sputtered. You're ungrateful. Disrespectful. You chose some bleeding heart nonprofit over the family business. I chose to teach underprivileged kids rather than help Brandon pretend to run a company, I clarified. And yes, that nonprofit job is why I qualify for the trust. Grandma valued teachers. She was one herself before she married Grandpa. That's not fair, Brandon whined. I didn't know about these conditions. Neither did I admitted. The difference is, I visited Grandma because I loved her, not because I was angling for inheritance. I became a teacher because it mattered to me, not because I was positioning myself for money. The trust rewards who we are, not what we pretended to be. My mother sank into her chair, her perfect posture crumbling. How long have you known? The lawyers contacted me on my birthday, I said. I've spent the last month getting everything transferred, setting up the charitable foundation Grandma requested, and preparing for this moment. You knew we were planning this? Dad's voice was hollow. You invited me to a formal family meeting with required attendance. You've been dropping hints about family legacy and difficult decisions for weeks. Brandon's been measuring my childhood room for his home gym. Yes, I knew. I stood, gathering my documents. But here's what you didn't know. I never needed your money. I needed parents who saw value in something beyond bank accounts. I needed a family that understood worth isn't measured in stock portfolios. So you'll keep it all? Brandon demanded. Every penny. I'll keep what Grandma left me, I said. The $3 million is going into the foundation for teaching scholarships. She'd have loved that. I'll live in the Hamptons house and maintain it the way she would have wanted. The rental income will fund after-school programs in the neighborhoods where those buildings stand. You're giving it away? Mom looked physically ill. I'm using it the way Grandma would have, I corrected. To help people who need it. To make a difference. To be everything you taught me not to be. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and that family meeting you planned? Where you were going to dramatically cut me off and teach me a lesson about respecting family values? Consider it successful. I learned exactly what this family values, and it isn't me. Sophia, wait, Dad called out. Let's discuss this rationally. Now you want to be rational? I turned back. Was it rational to plan this whole production? To invite me here specifically to humiliate me? To have Brandon sitting there with champagne ready to celebrate my disinheritance? We were trying to motivate you, Mom said weakly. To do what? Abandon my students? Give up teaching to join Brandon in destroying Grandpa's company? Become the kind of person who measures success only in dollars? Family comes first, Dad said, falling back on his favorite platitude. Grandma was family, I shot back. Where was this philosophy when she needed care? When she was lonely? When she spent holidays alone because you were too busy vacationing in Aspen? Don't you dare, Brandon started. I'll dare whatever I want. I cut him off. I'm the one who held her hand when she was scared. I'm the one who listened to her stories about Grandpa. I'm the one who made sure she had fresh flowers every week because they reminded her of her garden. My voice cracked slightly. I'm the one who was there when she died, holding her hand, promising I'd make her proud. And I have. Not with money or business deals, but by being someone who gives a damn about something beyond myself. The champagne bottle stood unopened on the table, a monument to their premature celebration. I looked at it, then at them. My parents who'd chosen money over meaning, my brother who'd chosen privilege over purpose. The saddest part? I said quietly. If you'd just been honest, if you'd said you were struggling financially and needed help, I'd have shared everything. But you had to make it about worthiness, about deserving, about teaching me a lesson. What lesson learned? I left them there in their formal living room with their formal furniture and their formal disappointment. As I walked to my car, my sensible, teacher salary car that I'd no longer need but would probably keep, my phone buzzed with messages. One from the lawyer confirming the scholarship foundation paperwork. One from the contractor about renovations on the Hamptons house. One from my principal, excitedly discussing how the new funding would transform our school. But the one that mattered most was saved in my voicemails. Grandma's voice, recorded a month before she died. My darling Sophia, if you're listening to this, it means the trust has found its way to you. I know your parents won't understand. They never understood that the best inheritance isn't money. It's knowing who you are and why that matters. Use this gift to keep being exactly who you are. That's worth more than all the money in the world. I sat in my car for a moment, looking back at the house where I'd grown up but never felt at home. Through the windows, I could see them still sitting around the table. Their power play collapsed, their assumptions shattered. They called a meeting to give everything to Brandon and nothing to me. Instead, they'd learned that nothing and everything were matters of perspective. Grandma had given me everything that mattered, not just money, but the validation that my choices, my values, my life had worth beyond their narrow definitions. As I drove away, I couldn't help but smile. They'd spent so much time teaching me what I didn't deserve. They'd never noticed I'd already inherited everything I needed: a grandmother's love, a purpose worth pursuing, and now, the means to pursue it without their approval. Their money would go to Brandon, to shore up failing businesses and fund empty lifestyles. Grandma's money would go to classrooms and scholarships, to kids who needed chances and teachers who provided them. In the end, we each gotten exactly what we deserved.
My name is Nathan, and I discovered my ex-wife was living in my childhood bedroom when I drove past my parents' house to drop off a birthday card for my mother. Andrea's car was in the driveway, the same Honda Civic I'd bought her for our anniversary 3 years ago, before she decided that sleeping with my coworker was more exciting than our marriage. Before she told the divorce judge I was emotionally absent and financially controlling, code for working 60-hour weeks to pay for the lifestyle she demanded. I sat in my truck for a full minute, card in hand, wondering if I was having some kind of breakdown. We'd been divorced for 8 months. She got the house in the settlement, the one I paid for. She got alimony that ate up 30% of my income. What was she doing at my parents' house at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday? Then I saw her through the window, in my old room, hanging curtains. I drove away without delivering the card. That evening, I called my sister Emma. She lived in Portland now, far enough away to avoid our parents' drama, but close enough to stay informed. Please tell me I'm hallucinating, I said without preamble. Is Andrea living with Mom and Dad? The silence stretched too long. Nate. She is. She's actually living in my childhood room. It's complicated. No, it's not. My ex-wife is living in my bedroom at my parents' house. That's not complicated. That's insane. Emma sighed. She showed up about 3 months ago. Said she was struggling, couldn't afford the house payments even with the alimony. Mom felt bad for her. Mom felt bad for the woman who cheated on me. You know how Mom is. Andrea cried, talked about how she had nowhere to go, how she always felt more welcome in their home than anywhere else. Dad was against it at first, but... Another sigh. You know how he is too. I did know. My mother, Patricia, had always wanted a daughter who'd go shopping with her, who'd care about the things she cared about, decorating, social events, the country club. Emma had been a disappointment in that regard, more interested in rock climbing than roses. But Andrea? Andrea had played the part perfectly during our marriage. Brunches and book clubs and calling my mother Mom in that sweet voice that made Patricia melt. How long has this been going on? 3 months. They didn't tell you because they knew you'd be upset. Upset? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My parents are harboring my cheating ex-wife in my childhood bedroom, and they thought I'd be upset. Nate, I tried talking to them, but Mom said, and I'm quoting here, Andrea's been more of a daughter to me than Nathan has been a son lately. The words hit like a physical blow. I've been distant since the divorce, true. But that was because every interaction with my parents had become about Andrea. How was Andrea doing? Was I sure I couldn't work things out with Andrea? Andrea had made such beautiful centerpieces for the church fundraiser. I have to go, I told Emma. Nate, wait. I hung up. For the next week, I threw myself into work. I ran a commercial real estate firm that specialized in distressed properties, buildings that needed major work, neighborhoods in transition. It wasn't glamorous, but I was good at seeing potential where others saw problems. More importantly, it kept me busy enough to avoid thinking about my ex-wife sleeping in my twin bed, surrounded by my high school trophies. Then my mother called. Nathan, we need to discuss Thanksgiving. What about it? Well, Andrea will be joining us, of course. She's family. I wanted to make sure you knew in advance so there wouldn't be any awkwardness. I sat back in my office chair, staring at the Seattle skyline. She's not family, Ma. We're divorced. She cheated on me. She's literally the opposite of family. Nathan, that's exactly the kind of attitude that drove her to Wade in the first place. You need to learn forgiveness. She didn't get driven away. She chose to sleep with Brad from accounting. People make mistakes when they're unhappy. Maybe if you paid more attention to her needs. I hung up. It was becoming a habit. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove through my old neighborhood, really looking at it for the first time. Ranch-style houses from the 1960s, large lots, mature trees. It was zoned R1, single-family residential only, the kind of zoning that preserved neighborhood character, but also prevented any real development or change. As I drove, I noticed something else. For sale signs, lots of them. The Hendersons were selling. The Kims had already moved. The old Peterson place was empty, a lockbox on the door. An idea began forming. Crazy perhaps, definitely expensive, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I made some calls the next day. The neighborhood was struggling. Kids had grown up and moved away. Original owners were downsizing or dying. Property values had stagnated while taxes kept rising. It was exactly the kind of situation I specialized in, distressed properties with hidden potential. Within a week, I'd made my first purchase. The Peterson house, 3 doors down from my parents. Cash offer, quick closing. The family was grateful. They'd been trying to sell for months. "What are you planning to do with it?" my business partner, Jerome, asked when he saw the paperwork. "Investment," I said vaguely. "Long-term play." Jerome knew me well enough to see there was more to it, but he also knew when not to push. Over the next 6 months, I became the most active buyer in the neighborhood. I used different LCs for each purchase, keeping my name off the public records. The Hendersons' house, the empty duplex on the corner, the old McKinsey place with the huge oak tree I used to climb. Each purchase was strategic, corner lots, double parcels, properties that, when combined, would create assemblages large enough for serious development. I paid fair prices, sometimes above asking. I wasn't trying to steal from anyone. I was solving problems for families who needed to sell. My parents never noticed. They were too busy posting Facebook photos of family dinners with Andrea, too busy with Andrea's new job search funded by my alimony, too busy redecorating my old room to better suit Andrea's taste. I found that last bit out from Emma, who called me after a particularly awkward visit home. "She's redecorating your room, Nate?" "Like completely. Mom's helping her." They painted over the growth chart on the doorframe. The growth chart, where my father had marked my height every birthday from age 2 to 18. Gone, covered in whatever trendy gray Andrea had chosen. "Let them," I said. "It won't matter soon." "What does that mean?" "Nothing." House Portland. By month 9, I owned 16 properties in the neighborhood, more than 40% of the total land area. The other investors I quietly brought in owned another 20%. Together, we controlled enough to make a serious proposal to the city. That's when I scheduled a meeting with the Planning Commission. Mixed-use development, I explained, spreading out the plans across the conference table. Retail on the ground floor, apartments above. Green space, walkable streets, affordable housing units to qualify for tax credits. We'll preserve the 3 historic houses, integrate them into the design. The commission was interested. The neighborhood had been bleeding residents for years. Property tax revenue was down. Crime was creeping up as houses sat empty. My proposal would revitalize the area, bring in young families, create jobs. "What about current residents?" one commissioner asked. "Full market value buyouts for anyone who wants to sell. Relocation assistance, and for those who want to stay, we'll work around them." But honestly, there aren't many left. It was true, the neighborhood was dying. My parents and a handful of others were holding onto a ghost of what used to be. My development would bring it back to life, just in a different form. The review process took months. Environmental studies, traffic analysis, community input sessions. I attended every meeting, though I kept a low profile. My company was the face of the project, not me personally. My parents, predictably, were oblivious. They were too busy with their new daughter to pay attention to city planning meetings or zoning notices. Andrea had started a small business, funded, I learned through the divorce lawyer grapevine, by a loan from my parents that everyone knew would never be repaid. The turning point came when the city announced a public hearing on the reasoning proposal. Every property owner in the affected area would be notified. The notice would include a map showing current ownership. I knew my parents would finally see what I'd done. But by then, it would be too late to stop it. The day of the hearing, I arrived early. The council chambers were packed, mostly with people I'd hired to support the project, but also curious residents and a few reporters who'd gotten wind of the story. My parents arrived 15 minutes late, looking confused. Andrea was with them, because of course she was. She was wearing jewelry I recognized, pieces I'd bought her during our marriage, pieces she'd supposedly sold to make ends meet. They found seats near the back. I watched from the corner of my eye as my mother opened the information packet, saw the ownership map, and went very, very still. The hearing was called to order. The planning director presented the proposal. The economic development team talked about job creation and tax revenue. Then it was time for public comment. My mother was one of the first to the microphone. "This is a trade estate," she said, voice shaking. "This neighborhood has character, history. Families have lived here for generations. You can't just bulldoze it for some soulless development." "Ma'am," the council president said gently, "the developer has offered to purchase any properties at above market rates. No one's being forced out." "But they're being pressured." "My own," she stopped, catching herself. "Someone has been buying up houses secretly, trying to force us out." "Is that your objection?" the councilwoman asked. "The sales were voluntary, correct? No one was coerced." My mother's face reddened. "It's manipulation. It's wrong." Other residents spoke. The few who opposed the plan talked about preservation and character. The many who supported it, including several who'd sold to me, talked about opportunity and revitalization. Then I stood up. "Nathan." My mother's voice carried across the room. "What are you doing here?" I walked to the microphone, calm and professional. "Council members, my name is Nathan Cross. I'm the principal investor in this project." The silence was deafening. I could feel my parents' stares burning into my back. "I grew up in this neighborhood," I continued. "I know every house, every tree, every crack in the sidewalk. And I also know that nostalgia doesn't pay property taxes. Memories don't fix leaking roofs or attract young families. This neighborhood is dying. We can preserve it in amber until it's nothing but empty houses and memories, or we can give it new life." "This is revenge," my father's voice boomed from the back. "You're doing this to get back at us." The council president banged his gavel. "Sir, you'll have your turn to speak." I turned to face my parents. Andrea was between them, her face pale. "This isn't revenge. This is business." I saw an opportunity to revitalize a declining neighborhood and create value for everyone involved. "The fact that you chose to prioritize my ex-wife over your son is irrelevant to the economics of this proposal." "We gave her a home when she had nowhere to go," my mother cried. "She had a home. The one I paid for. The one she got in the divorce. If she couldn't afford it, perhaps she should have thought of that before destroying our marriage." The gavel banged again. "Let's keep this to the zoning issue, please." I turned back to the council. "I've submitted all relevant documentation. The economic benefits are clear. The community impact is positive. I urge you to approve this proposal." I sat down. The hearing continued for another hour. When it came time to vote, it wasn't close. 6-1 in favor of rezoning, with only the most conservative councilman voting against. The neighborhood would be rezoned. Development could begin as soon as we close on the remaining properties. After the vote, I headed for the exit. My parents intercepted me in the parking lot. Andrea hung back, for once having the sense to stay out of a family argument. "How could you?" my mother demanded. "This is our home." "And it still can be," I said evenly. "I'll pay you triple what you paid for it. You can buy a nicer house in a better neighborhood. Everyone wins." "This isn't about money," my father spat. "This is about family, about roots." "Family?" I laughed, but it was bitter. "You let my ex-wife live in my childhood bedroom. You told people she was more of a daughter than I was a son. You chose her over me, and now you want to talk about family?" "People get divorced all the time," my mother said. "Mature adults find a way to coexist. Mature adults don't move their son's cheating ex into his childhood room and then act surprised when he objects." Andrea finally spoke up. "Nathan, I never meet." "Don't." I held up a hand. "You made your choices. You all did. And I made mine. The difference is my choices are legally binding and council approved." I got in my truck, then rolled down the window for one last word. "You have 90 days before construction starts. I suggest you use them to find a new place to live. All of you." 6 months later, the old neighborhood was gone. In its place, a vibrant mixed-use development was rising. Coffee shops and boutiques on the ground floor. Affordable apartments above. Young families moving in. Kids playing in the new park we built where the old Peterson place used to be. My parents sold to me, eventually. Not for triple, they held up too long, and I dropped my offer to merely double. They bought a condo across town. A nice place with a doorman and a view. Andrea? She vanished somewhere along the way. Without my parents' free housing and my alimony, which my lawyer successfully got reduced after proving she was living rent-free, she had to face reality. Last I heard, she'd moved in with Brad from accounting. I hope they're very happy together. Emma asked me once if I regretted it, if destroying our childhood neighborhood was worth it. I didn't destroy it, I told her. I transformed it, gave it new life. And if our parents had shown me a fraction of the loyalty they showed Andrea, maybe I would have preserved their house, made it the historic centerpiece of the development. But they made their choice. She nodded, understanding. What about forgiveness? Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean subsidizing the people who betrayed you. It means moving on and building something better from the ashes. The development is thriving now. I kept one thing from the old neighborhood, that huge oak tree from the McKinsey place. It stands in the center of the new park, a plaque at its base, in memory of what was, in hope of what will be. My parents have never apologized. They've never admitted they were wrong to take Andrea's side. But sometimes I drive past their old house, now a thriving bakery with apartments above, and I see them through the window of the coffee shop next door. They look older, smaller somehow, diminished by their choices. They see me too sometimes. We don't wave. We don't speak. But in those moments, I think they understand. They chose my ex-wife over their son. They chose the past over the future. They chose comfort over truth. And I chose to build something new on the ashes of their choices. The bakery makes excellent croissants. I stop by sometimes, chatting with the young couple who runs it. They're grateful for the opportunity the development provided. They're building a life, a family, a future. In my old bedroom, where Andrea once hung her curtains, they store flour and sugar. Where my parents enabled betrayal, strangers now create sweetness. It's not revenge, it's poetry. And every time I bite into one of their croissants, I taste the future I built from the ruins of the past. It tastes like success. It tastes like vindication. It tastes like moving on. The nursery had taken me 4 months to perfect. Every weekend of my 3rd trimester, I'd driven the 40 minutes from my apartment to my parents' house, paintbrush in hand, determined to create something beautiful in my childhood bedroom. Soft lavender walls with hand-painted butterflies, a white crib I'd saved for since the day I saw that positive test, and a rocking chair where my grandmother had once sung me to sleep. I'd moved back home at 7 months pregnant when my landlord sold the building. Just until I get back on my feet, I'd promised my parents. They'd agreed, grudgingly, reminding me that at 28, I should have my life together. My brother Ethan, 31 and unemployed, had been living in their basement for 5 years, but somehow that was different. Now 3 weeks postpartum, I stood in the doorway of what had been my daughter Sophie's nursery, my C-section incision still tender, watching a stranger direct my father on where to position furniture. The crib should go by the window, Brittany commanded, her bleached blonde hair piled high, her hand resting on a belly that barely showed at 4 months. And that ugly purple has got to go. We're thinking blue for our little prince. My mother appeared behind me, not even trying to look apologetic. Oh good, you're up. We need you to move your things out today. Move my things? I shifted Sophie in my arms, her tiny weight still feeling surreal. This is her nursery, we live here. Not anymore, Dad said, not even looking up from the crib he was dismantling. The crib I'd spent 8 hours assembling while 9 months pregnant because he'd been too busy watching football. Brittany's moving in. She's carrying our grandson. I'm holding your granddaughter, I said, my voice shaking. He finally looked at me then, his expression dismissive. Boys matter more, Veronica. They carry on the family name. Your daughter is sweet, but a boy? That's a legacy. I felt like I'd been slapped. Sophie stirred against my chest, making those little newborn sounds that still made my heart clench. 3 weeks old. She was 3 weeks old and already being told she mattered less. Where are we supposed to go? I asked numbly. Brittany laughed, a sharp sound like breaking glass. Not our problem. Maybe you should have thought about that before getting knocked up by some loser who wouldn't even stick around. She was talking about David, who died in Afghanistan 2 months after I told him I was pregnant. We'd been planning to marry when he got back, but explaining that to people who'd already decided my story seemed pointless. You have an hour, Mom said briskly. Brittany has a doctor's appointment at 2, and she needs to rest after. An hour? My voice cracked. I just had major surgery. I can't even lift anything over 10 pounds. Where am I supposed to? There's a women's shelter downtown, Brittany offered with a fake smile. They take single moms. Ethan appeared then, wearing the same ratty bathrobe he'd had since college. Britt's right, sis. You need to learn to stand on your own feet. Can't mooch off mom and dad forever. The irony of that statement, coming from a man who hadn't paid rent in half a decade, should have been funny. Instead, it just hurt. I looked around the nursery one more time. At the growth chart, I'd already started marking, even though Sophie wouldn't stand for months. At the butterfly mobile I'd special ordered from an artist in Vermont. At the basket of books I'd been reading to her every night, convinced she could hear my voice and know she was loved. I need help packing, I said quietly. I can't lift. Figure it out, Dad said, already carrying the crib frame toward the door. We've got work to do here. They left me standing there, holding my daughter in a room that was being erased as if we'd never existed. I called my best friend Marissa with shaking hands. She arrived in 20 minutes with her husband Connor and a rage that could have powered a small city. They're doing what? She shrieked, then immediately lowered her voice when Sophie fussed. Sorry, sweet girl. Auntie Marissa's just planning your grandparents' murders. It's fine, I lied, throwing clothes into garbage bags because my parents hadn't even given me boxes. I'll figure something out. Connor was already loading Sophie's bouncer into their truck. You'll stay with us. No arguments. I can't impose. Shut up, Marissa said firmly. You're not imposing. You're surviving. As we packed, I could hear Brittany in the next room, complaining about the baby smell and demanding my mother hire professional cleaners. My mother, who'd never once offered to help with Sophie's laundry or midnight feedings, was promising her a cleaning service and interior decorator. I found myself in the kitchen, grabbing Sophie's formula, the special kind for her sensitive stomach that cost $30 a can. Mom appeared, hand out. That's expensive formula. Brittany might need it. I stared at her. Brittany's baby won't be born for 5 months. This expires in 3 weeks. Still, boys eat more. We should stock up. That's when something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into place, like a bone being reset. No, I said calmly, tucking the formula into the diaper bag. Excuse me? I said no, this is my daughter's formula, purchased with my money, for my living, breathing child. Not for Brittany's theoretical prince. Mom's face flushed. Don't be selfish, Veronica. Family helps family. Really? I laughed, but it came out cold. Where was family when I was up for 72 hours straight because Sophie had colic? Where was family when I couldn't shower for a week because I couldn't put her down? Where was family when I sobbed in the emergency room, terrified something was wrong, completely alone? You chose to have a baby without a father. He died. I screamed and Sophie started crying. I bounced her gently, lowering my voice. He died serving our country. He never got to meet her. He never got to see this nursery I built for our daughter, and you're giving it away because she's just a girl. Dad appeared in the doorway. Keep your voice down. You're upsetting Brittany. I'm being thrown out with a 3-week-old baby, and you're worried about upsetting the woman stealing my daughter's room. No one's stealing anything, he said firmly. This is our house. We decide who lives here. Our house. There it was, the weapon they'd always held over my head. Their house, their rules, their favoritism toward their do-nothing son and whatever woman he happened to drag home. You're right, I said quietly. It is your house. Something in my tone must have worried him because his eyes narrowed. Don't do anything stupid, Veronica. I smiled. It felt like armor clicking into place. Wouldn't dream of it. They had no idea what was coming next. Marissa and Connor's guest room was small but clean, and they'd somehow managed to fit Sophie's crib in the corner. That first night, as I sat nursing her while Marissa made us tea, I told them everything. I'm going to bury them, Marissa said flatly. Legally, emotionally, financially, total scorched earth. How? I asked tiredly. They're right, it is their house. Connor, who worked in real estate law, looked thoughtful. Maybe, maybe not. Tell me about your grandmother again. Your dad's mom. She passed when I was 15, left the house to Dad. Did you ever see the will? I shook my head. Why? Just curious. I've seen a lot of inheritance cases where things aren't as clear-cut as they seem. I filed that away, too exhausted to think about it. But over the next weeks, as I slowly healed and found my rhythm with Sophie, Connor's words kept echoing. Meanwhile, my family's cruelty continued via text. Pictures of the nursery being painted navy blue. Updates about Brittany's appointments, always scheduled during what had been Sophie's feeding times, as if to prove they'd never accommodated us. Mom sent an invoice for utilities used during your stay, dated from when I'd moved back home. They're charging you rent retroactively. Marissa was incredulous. While you were pregnant. $500 a month, I confirmed. Plus utilities, says I have 30 days to pay or they'll take legal action. That's when I decided to do some legal research of my own. The courthouse records were dusty but digitized. I started with property records, working backwards. The house had indeed been Grandma Rose's, purchased with Grandpa before he died young. She'd lived there alone for 40 years, Dad moving back in to care for her in her final year. Then I found the will. My hands shook as I read it. Connor had been right. Things weren't clear-cut at all. The house hadn't been left to Dad. It had been left in trust for all biological grandchildren of Rosemarie Harrison in equal shares, to be administered by Peter Harrison until the youngest grandchild reaches age 25. All biological grandchildren, equal shares. I was a biological grandchild. So was Ethan. So was Sophie. Dad wasn't the owner, he was the trustee, and he'd been living in, and now giving away rooms in, a house that was 1/3 mine and 1/3 my daughter's. But it got better, or worse, depending on your perspective. The trust had very specific provisions. The trustee could live in the house while administering it, but couldn't make major changes without beneficiary consent, couldn't charge rent to beneficiaries, and absolutely couldn't favor one beneficiary over another. Every rent payment I'd made, every time they'd helped Ethan while denying me support, every renovation they'd done for him while refusing to fix my broken window, it was all carefully documented. I brought everything to a lawyer, not Connor, who wisely suggested I find someone neutral. Patricia Winters specialized in trust litigation, and her eyes widened as she reviewed the documents. "This is serious," she said, regaining her composure. "There's a pattern here. We can take legal action. Can we stop it?" She gave a confident smile. "We can do more than that." The first letter arrived on a Tuesday. I knew because Ethan texted a photo. "What is this?" It was a cease and desist, halting renovations on the trust property, demanding that my daughter's share of the inheritance be respected, and requesting a full accounting of trust disbursements for the past 13 years. Dad called. I didn't answer. Mom texted paragraphs about family and disappointment. I forwarded everything to Patricia. Brittany posted online claiming people were trying to tear others down. That too went into the file. The formal lawsuit was filed discreetly. Breach of fiduciary duty, mismanagement of funds, and misuse of property. The evidence showed that payments I'd made were from trust property, not personal contributions. Support had been selectively given. Documents confirmed the trust was intended to benefit all grandchildren equally. But the most revealing details came during discovery. There was evidence of personal and trust funds being mixed, expenses charged to the trust that didn't serve all beneficiaries. Meanwhile, my documented requests for school and baby supplies had been declined. "This meets the criteria for financial misconduct," Patricia said. "I don't want to ruin lives," I replied, holding Sophie. "I just want fairness." She nodded. "That's exactly what we're after." Court proceedings moved slowly, but social dynamics shifted fast. News spread and concern grew. Brittany eventually stepped away from the situation when questions arose. Ethan had to reconsider his plans when the trust funds were frozen. Mom, once proud of her community ties, stepped back from certain roles. But the moment that stayed with me, Sophie's first word wasn't mama or da, it was mine. She said it as we signed the settlement. The house would be sold, proceeds fairly divided, questionable trustee fees reviewed, back payments including rent returned with interest. It came to nearly $200,000 each. Mine, Sophie declared, reaching for a pen. "That's right," I said. "Yours." Dad used to say boys carry on the legacy, but he misunderstood what legacy meant. It wasn't the name or the property, not favoritism disguised as tradition. The real legacy was Grandma Rose, who sewed for decades, raised a son alone, and left her home equally to her grandchildren, including a great-granddaughter she'd never meet. A girl some thought wouldn't matter. She mattered. She now had a college fund, a safe space. A mother who learned that family is about presence, not entitlement. About who shows up, who holds you, who fights for your future. The house went to a new family with twin girls. I drove past one day, Sophie chatting in her car seat, and saw them painting a nursery. Purple, with butterflies. Look, Sophie, I said. That used to be your room. She glanced, then turned back to her toy, already focused on the future. My phone buzzed, another message from Mom, asking to visit. I didn't reply. I drove home, to the apartment Connor and Marissa helped us find. I carried Sophie up the stairs myself. Her room here is smaller, but it's ours. Built with care, not resentment, filled with peace, not regret. That night, as I rocked her to sleep, I whispered the truth they tried to steal from her. You matter, Sophie. You've always mattered. And anyone who says different. She sighed in her sleep, perfect and whole and worth everything I've fought for. They have no idea what's coming next. The cursor blinked on the empty screen, mocking me. File not found. I refreshed again. Still nothing. My hands trembled as I navigated to the backup folder. Empty, the cloud drive. Deleted. 5 years of research, 300 pages of analysis, countless interviews, field studies, and breakthrough discoveries in renewable energy storage. Gone. Mom? I called out, my voice cracking. Did someone use my computer? She appeared in the doorway of what used to be my room, now converted into my sister Brianna's content creation studio, complete with ring lights and a pink backdrop. At 32, I'd moved back home temporarily after my apartment building had a fire, just for a few months while I finished my PT. That was the plan. Oh, that old laptop. Brianna needed space for her TikTok drafts. You know how important her platform is now, 50,000 followers. Mom beamed with pride. She's basically an influencer. The world tilted. You deleted my files. It's just typing, Meredith. Do it again. She shrugged, already turning away. Besides, your deadline isn't for another month, right? 6 weeks, actually. 6 weeks to defend my thesis that no longer existed. 5 years of documenting revolutionary battery technology that could change how we store solar energy. Gone for TikTok videos of my 22-year-old sister doing makeup transformations and pranks. Mom, I grabbed her arm. That was my doctorate, my entire thesis, years of research. Dad wandered in, drawn by the shouting. What's all the noise? She deleted my thesis, I said, tears burning my eyes. My entire PhD thesis. He glanced at the laptop and at me. Her followers matter more than your boring paper, Meredith. Brianna's actually making money. When was the last time your chemistry stuff paid a bill? Chemistry stuff, my groundbreaking research into graphene-based supercapacitors that 3 major tech companies were already interested in. But to them, it was just chemistry stuff. Brianna sauntered in, phone in hand, recording everything. Oh my God, are you seriously crying over homework? That's so cringe. This is totally going viral. My sister's mental breakdown over school. She held the phone inches from my face as I sobbed. The red recording light blinked like an evil eye. Please, I begged. Please tell me you have it somewhere. The recycling bin. Another drive. Anything. I cleared everything, Brianna said cheerfully. Needed room for my brand partnerships. I'm working with Fashion Nova now. They sent me like so much stuff. She pivoted to show her outfit to her phone camera. Speaking of which, you need to move your science junk out of the garage. I'm turning it into my photo studio. My science junk. The prototype batteries. The testing equipment I bought with my meager stipend. The physical proof of my research that could have helped reconstruct my thesis. That night, I sat in my car in a parking lot, calling my advisor through tears. Dr. Harrison's silence stretched long after I explained. Meredith, she finally said, her voice heavy. Without your thesis, without your data, I have to report this to the committee. You'll likely need to start over or withdraw from the program. Please, there has to be something. I'm sorry, the defense date can't be moved. Other candidates are waiting. If you can't produce your work, she didn't need to finish. I slept in my car that night, unable to face going back. My phone buzzed with notifications. Brianna had posted the video. PhD MELTDWN. Is higher education worth it? Already 100K views. The comments were brutal. strangers calling me entitled, spoiled, a crybaby academic who couldn't handle real life. But between the cruel comments, I noticed something else. Tech professionals asking about my research. Engineers wanting to know more about the graphene supercapacitors. A few even recognized the implications of what I've been working on. One comment stopped me cold. Wait, is this the M. Thompson who published that paper on enhanced energy density in hybrid capacitors? That research is revolutionary. Someone please tell me she has backups. I didn't, but I had something else. Something my family had never bothered to understand. I had a mind that remembered. For the next 3 days, I lived in the university library. I reconstructed what I could from memory, from printed drafts I found in my office, from email correspondences with colleagues. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to prove the work existed. More importantly, I started documenting everything else. My family's treatment wasn't new. It was just the culmination. I'd been keeping receipts, literally and figuratively, for years. Every time they'd used my scholarship money for Brianna's pageants, every time they'd missed my academic awards for her recitals. The graduation they skipped because Brianna had an Instagram meet and greet. But now I had something new, evidence of destruction of intellectual property. The university's legal counsel was very interested in my case, especially when I showed them the video Brianna posted, proof that my family had deliberately destroyed academic work, the potential patent applications, the corporate interests. This could be considered theft of intellectual property, the lawyer mused, especially if you can prove the value of the research. I could, because what my family didn't know was that 2 weeks before they deleted everything, I'd had a preliminary meeting with Quantum Power Solutions. They'd offered me a position upon graduation, with a signing bonus of $150,000 and stock options, all contingent on my thesis defense. That offer was now in jeopardy. But Quantum's CEO, Dr. Angela Wu, had seen Brianna's video too. Is it true? She asked when she called. Your family destroyed your research for social media storage. Yes, I admitted, shame burning through me. Send me what you've reconstructed. And Meredith? Start documenting everything. We might have legal grounds here. She wasn't the only one interested. The video had backfired spectacularly on Brianna. Tech Twitter had picked it up, and not in the way she hoped. #JustAsForMeredith started trending. Scientists and engineers shared their own stories of family members not understanding their work. The narrative shifted from crybaby academic to groundbreaking researcher sabotaged by TikTok influencer sister. Fashion Nova pulled Brianna's partnership within 48 hours. We cannot be associated with the destruction of educational advancement, their PR statement read. Other brands followed suit. But I wasn't done. See, Brianna's entire online presence was built on a lie, the wealthy lifestyle she portrayed, funded by credit cards in my parents' names. The luxury apartment she claimed to live in, she was still in my childhood bedroom. The car she showed off, leased under my credit because hers was too poor. I knew all this because I'd been the one managing the family finances since I was 18. My parents were terrible with money, and I'd stepped in to help. I had access to everything, every receipt, every bill, every fraudulent claim. I also had the passwords, because Brianna, for all her tech-savvy influence, used the same password for everything, Princess 2001. I didn't hack. I didn't need to. I simply logged into the family cloud storage I'd set up years ago, the one they'd forgotten existed because it wasn't on the laptop, and downloaded everything. Years of tax documents showing they claimed my educational expenses as deductions while pocketing my scholarships. Proof that Brianna's self-made influencer story included PPP loans she fraudulently obtained for a business that didn't exist. The IRS whistleblower form was surprisingly simple to fill out. But the real revenge came from an unexpected source. My reconstructed thesis. Working from memory and salvaged pieces, I'd actually improved on my original research. The pressure, the anger, the determination to prove them wrong had pushed me to insights I'd missed before. My advisor was stunned. This is Meredith. This is better than your original work. The new approach to electrode design, the efficiency calculations. How did you? Turns out starting over wasn't the worst thing, I said. I defended my thesis 4 days before the deadline. The committee was mesmerized. Word had spread about my situation, and the room was packed. Dr. Wu from Quantum Power was there. So we're representatives from Tesla's battery division and a venture capital firm specializing in clean energy. I passed with distinction. The job offers started immediately, not just the original quantum position, but competing bids. Tesla wanted me. A startup in Singapore offered relocation and equity. The venture capital firm wanted to fund my own company. I chose the startup. The moving bonus alone was more than my family had ever seen. The day I left was the day the IRS notices arrived. Mom called, hysterical. "What did you do?" "They're auditing everything. They're saying Brianna committed fraud." I documented everything, I said calmly, loading boxes into my new Tesla, a signing perk. "Just like you taught me, keep receipts, right? But she's your sister. And I was your daughter. Didn't stop you from destroying my life's work. It was just typing." "No, Mom. It was revolutionary research into energy storage that could help combat climate change. It was 5 years of my life. It was my future, and you deleted it for TikTok videos." Dad grabbed the phone. "You're destroying this family." "No," I corrected. "I'm documenting it. Big difference." Brianna's downfall was swift and public. The IRS fraud investigation made news. Her remaining sponsors fled. The wealth she portrayed crumbled, revealed as smoke and mirrors. She tried to spin it as cancel culture, but the internet had receipts now, many of them provided by anonymous sources who happened to have access to family financial records. My parents lost the house trying to pay back taxes and penalties. The last I heard, they'd moved into a small apartment, the walls too thin to film TikToks without noise complaints. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was in Singapore, leading a team developing the next generation of energy storage. My reconstructed thesis had been published to acclaim. The patents were filed. The technology was moving from prototype to production. A year later, I gave a keynote speech at an international energy conference. The title, Innovation from Ashes: How Destruction Breeds Revolution. I talked about my research, yes, but I also talked about resilience, about how sometimes losing everything forces you to build something better. How the greatest discoveries often come from the deepest failures. The standing ovation was gratifying, but not as gratifying as the email I'd received that morning from a high school student in Bangladesh who'd read my paper and was starting her own experiments with graphene capacitors. "Your work inspired me," she wrote. "My family doesn't understand either. They think science is a waste for girls. But you proved them wrong." I smiled, remembering my own family's dismissal. The reduction of years of work to just typing. Their inability to see value in anything that didn't get likes or views. They were wrong, of course. My thesis wasn't just typing. It was the foundation of a technology that would help power the world. It was jobs for hundreds of people. It was inspiration for young scientists. It was proof that knowledge, once created, can never truly be destroyed, only transformed. My phone buzzed. Brianna had tried to add me on LinkedIn. Her profile now listed her as a social media consultant with a community college degree in marketing. I clicked ignore. Later that evening, I video called my team to discuss our latest breakthrough. We were on the verge of something extraordinary, a battery that could store solar energy for weeks, not hours. Game-changing technology. As I explained the technical details, sharing my screen filled with equations and molecular diagrams, I thought about Mom's words, just typing. No, I thought, watching my team's excited faces as they grasped the implications. This was never just typing. This was the future, and they deleted themselves from it. The conference ended with an announcement. Our startup had just secured Series B funding at a valuation of $500 million. My equity stake was worth more than my parents would see in 10 lifetimes. But the real value, the 14 patents filed, the 3 products in development, the 57 employees whose families were supported by our work, the potential to reduce global carbon emissions by millions of tons, all from typing they thought didn't matter. That night, alone in my Singapore apartment overlooking the city lights, I opened my laptop and created a new document. Not a thesis this time, but a book proposal. The story of how destruction became creation, how betrayal became breakthrough, how a deleted file led to an energy revolution. I typed the title, More Than Just Typing, a Memoir. The cursor blinked, waiting. This time, I had backups, multiple clouds, physical drives. redundancy upon redundancy. But more importantly, I had something my family never understood: the knowledge that creation isn't about the files we save. It's about the minds that refuse to stop creating, even when everything is deleted. Especially then,